Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Sarowick. Sejohn?
Yeah, it's one of them gray days, Dev. It's been raining here for the last day, and it's not let up yet. It's so I'm sitting here in like the dark talking to you.
It's like a lovely fall morning on the East Coast.
Great.
I honestly get, like, I don't, okay, so behind the curtain, Say Report Secrets Revealed, Volume 17. I have an outfit that I wear when I podcast. Specifically for this show.
Okay.
And keen listeners or people who have been here from the beginning, they're going to understand why I wear the outfit that I wear when we record. It's twofold, so it doesn't just have to do with the Say Report. It also kind of has to do with the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. But on the top, I wear a Shantae shirt, a beautiful, like, sky blue Shantae shirt. And that shirt, that's evergreen. That's always comfortable. Where I'm an idiot is that for my uniform pants, my podcasting uniform pants, I went with a gray pair of yoga pants. And like sometimes we record in the summer. Sometimes 26 of our episodes are done while the earth is closer to the sun as opposed to far away from the sun. And I'm like, but pants will be fine. And let me tell you, pants, they're usually not fine. Usually I'm very warm because I'm sitting here in pants. But today, this lovely fall weather, no, I'm comfortable for the first time in a long time.
No restrictions. There's no rules, just right over here whenever we record.
Well, can I tell you my favorite part about it, right? Is I don't usually go out of the house in the Shantae shirt. It is specifically for podcasting. Mm-hmm. But I went to go see Thor Love and Thunder. I wore the Shantae shirt so that I could bathe in the glory of Thor Love and Thunder, and maybe it would come back and inspire better podcasting.
Didn't work, but go on.
Oh, fuck you. I gotta tell you, I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back here. I feel like the last couple of weeks of podcasting have been really good. Like, I've been real energized throughout them. I haven't felt that way for a while. And Sejohn, I figured out why. Oh. We're gonna jump right into the solving of the mystery that I've done over the past 2 weeks.
This is what Devon has spent his time doing, is tracking down clues about his own existence.
Yeah, it's been real introspective. But before that, just a brief thing. When we called an episode Oreo Rituals, that episode did gangbusters. When we called an episode Hydrox Dreams, that episode did not perform well at all. So, is the name. Nobody wants to fuck with Hydrox. That's the problem. We solved that mystery for you. But the bigger mystery was, all right, so I mentioned the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. One of the reasons why is last week we recorded our August episode. It's available for consumption now. It's pretty crazy. Because Sejohn and I decided, fuck the rules. The rules don't apply to your Say reporters. And we messed with the Sejohn for like a good 2 hours. And it was a really good time. But we had planned to try to get ahead of things, ahead of the curve, and actually record that 1 week early. And that didn't happen. And the reason that didn't happen is for some reason, I entered into a near catatonic state. And I didn't know why. Like, I had no energy at all.
Yeah.
To the fact that I thought it might be some sort of mysterious illness or maybe a not so mysterious illness, considering all of the not so mysterious illnesses that are flying around America right now.
Yeah. It's been a weird time mentally and emotionally for all of us. So, yeah.
But it was like legitimately sitting at my computer desk trying to take notes for Sejohn so that we could do the episode. And on it, I could have fallen asleep for 1,000 years. I would have been Rip Van Winkle. It was just, I've never felt that tired before. And I can't say that anymore because yesterday I also hit that level of tiredness. Just like, I have no energy. I could fall into this chair. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Because we talk about drugs and drug paraphernalia on the Say Report. I might have switched from a sativa to an indica blend. But I always do this show completely free of any sort of enhancements or performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, what are we, Joe Rogan? We don't need that.
No, we don't need that. I do this early in the morning because I have a clear mind early in the morning, and then who knows what happens. But it actually turns out, because I woke up yesterday at 5 a.m. and I did a bunch of stuff. So there was a part of me that thought maybe I was just tired. But it switched from me having literally all of the energy in the world to none of the energy in the world. Like, I would have thought that an energy vampire might have glomfed onto me and was just sucking it away. Sucking away my sweet, sweet mana.
You're milking what is inevitably going to be you just doing something wrong, right? Like, you should have just behaved yourself in some way.
What I actually did, and what I didn't even realize this. So, are you familiar with the milk of the humble coconut?
Yes, that was the grossest way anyone's ever put it, but yeah.
Well, I thought one of it. I'm going Coco Loco, Sejohn. That's what it turns out.
Of the cocoa tree.
That's different. That's chocolate. No, so coconut milk is something that I recently discovered that Monster, the energy drink company, has a very low calorie option called Monster Rehab. And it's like 0 to 10 calories for any of these flavors of Monster Rehab. And I woke up one morning just drained. I bought a Monster Rehab. I drank it and it reinvigorated me. Plus, like, energy drink, and it has all the taurine, ginseng, all the other like hippy dippy at home, what's the word for that? Holistic. All the holistic herbs that are supposed to give you energy in energy drinks, when really it's the oodles and oodles of caffeine and sugar that are giving you that. And so I kind of jumped on the rehab wagon. I was on the Monster Rehab wagon. And that day that I had...
The other deal with rehab is that it also has a lot of like antioxidants and like stuff you would need the next electrolytes, stuff you would need the next day for a hangover.
For a hangover,
when they say
right?
Rehab, you are rehabbing a hangover, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I jumped on that wagon, and I was doing pretty well for a while there. But that day, that Sejohn day, I had started the day with a rehab because I had been up till 1 the night before, probably playing Vampire Survivors. And I'm like, man, I need this in order to get ready for Sejohn. So I drank one of them, but also on the way into work, my tire had a slow leak. So I ended up leaving halfway through the day, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to have another Monster Rehab, and that'll be fine. Turns out that in addition to all the antioxidants and electrolytes and all of that, the base of that is coconut milk. And coconut milk is very high in potassium and magnesium, which are muscle relaxants. So I gave myself basically a double dose of over-the-counter muscle relaxants, and that's why I felt like I had no energy. And the reason why I recognize this is yesterday, Saturday mornings, we've been going out on like tiny little adventures. It's mostly because Dale is now working from home and she needs to drive her car. She wants to avoid a bee-ridden husk like we've heard about on other episodes of this Air Report. So her whole plan is on Saturdays we go for drives, and she'll like do Pokemon Go stuff, or maybe we'll just see parts of the state that we haven't seen in a while because we were under lockdown for 2 years. It's things like that. But mostly what we start our days with is we go to the Starbucks right up the road and we get their pink drink, which is a pink juice cocktail that's basically strawberries and cream. That's the whole flavoring that it's supposed to represent. But we've done a bit of a hack, and apparently this is out there on the internet. I wish I could take credit for it, which is to add some pumps of raspberry syrup as well, and then some peach juice on top of all of that. And the peach juice actually makes the drink more refreshing. I don't know what it is about peach nectar, but that's what it does. It refreshes you. And then if you have the raspberry and the strawberry, it actually kind of tastes like a cream saver. So it's a delicious beverage that we start these days with. Turns out the primary base of that is coconut milk.
Okay.
So I've essentially been dosing myself with muscle relaxers, because if I'm going to Starbucks, right, if I'm waiting in the line, I'm going to get the Trenta. I'm going to get the 30-ounce drink. So I'm drinking 30 ounces of muscle relaxant. And it's making me tired.
It's not like it's like a full like tank of muscle relaxant that you're just putting into your system and then just turning into a ball of goo in the car. Like there is some in there, and you are giving yourselves more than the average human. I will definitely give you that.
I'm overdosing on not pharmaceutical grade muscle relaxants. And it was just like as soon as I'm like, could it be the coconut milk? And like yesterday was the one where I'm like, I think it's this. I think that's the through line is that I know there's coconut milk in those pink drinks, and I had those 2 rehabs on Zohan Day, where like Zohan's like, you're not gonna mess with me. I didn't think we were gonna be able to record that episode ever after the way I felt that day. I thought there might be some type of curse.
Or perhaps that movie was the one that would break us, but it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. We messed with it. We had a lot of fun with it. And actually, it might have unlocked some deep secrets about the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, which is my fun way of saying you should probably go check out that episode. Check out the whole podcast. It's a fun time. It's more focused than this one. We're not solving any coconut milk mysteries.
Yeah. Well, I would have suggested that we send you to rehab, but that seems to be the problem.
No.
Oh man. Well,
yeah,
I'm
it was
glad
just
that you got
crazy.
to the bottom of that mystery. Yeah. I am. So how much coconut milk have you had today, Dev?
None. I've had none. I haven't had any coconut milk today, and the last couple of episodes, I also haven't had any coconut milk. So I think that's why I'm feeling more energized, more like connected while we're recording, because I'm not fighting off like the cocoa demons from taking my brain down. What's really weird is that coconut milk apparently makes you sleepy, but coca leaves and their powdery brother fill you with energy. God, if God existed, he's got a sense of humor. Like they should be called roulette plants at this point, right? Anything that starts with COCO, it's a roulette plant, and it's like, maybe it'll give you all the energy in the world. Maybe it'll make you feel like you should be dead right now.
Either way, it's a good time. You're fine.
God is. I mean, yeah, I'm not really a religious person, but this would be my first argument for there being a God. Is the fact that if I created a bunch of life, I'd want to fuck with them. And I can think of no better way of fucking with things than making 2 items similar in name and being like, one will make you feel like you are dead, and one will make you feel like you're the most alive you've ever been.
Also, it will bloom delicious treats that will make you want to definitely breathe this plant.
Yeah, right. Like this plant is it's like, I don't know. It's just crazy. So that's not been my big thing this week.
It's evidence. It's evidence that the Earth is trying to kill us as a human race. Like the Earth is out there trying to get rid of us as fast as it can.
Oh, we're the infection, Sejohn. So how have you been? What have you been doing this past week?
So I've been doing quite a few things. Been continuing down my journey down Switch memory lane. I started up after completing Mario Odyssey, or as much as Mario Odyssey as I wanted to on a replay of it. I started up Breath of the Wild. Sorry,
I thought that's where we're going with it,
and I was very confused for a second. No, I started up a Breath of the Wild run again this week, and just been kind of diving into that. And so I'm taking it in small chunks because I've restarted that game a few times, and I always I go hard when I restart, and then I burn myself out after a couple of Divine Beasts or whatever line I hit. But I really do want to explore a lot more this time around. And part of it is because, I'm trying to keep it fresh in my head for whenever Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. But the other thing is like I said, I've been kind of going on this kick of just going back and playing some of these older games on the Switch. I'm having a hard time connecting to we've talked about this before, where you kind of hit that moment where there's nothing firing on all cylinders right now video game wise for me. I wrapped up a couple of things that were, and I'm not really going too crazy. I am still playing Membrane. I think I mentioned this last week. Do you know what I forgot to the big story about Membrane on the Switch. Do you know anything about this?
No, and the thinking about Membrane makes me sick to my stomach. But continue.
No. We don't have to talk about the gameplay. The history of that game. For some reason, I don't know why, nobody's ever been able to figure this out. The developer decided, after being on Switch for a couple of months, for $25, I think is the original price. They raised the price to $250.
Oh, okay.
So it is on, and it is still on the Switch store for $250, and it's never gone back down from whenever they raised it. And so I got it for $2.50. It was 99% off, and I don't know if that's something that they do often or something like that. But I don't know what the bit is there. I was because I was looking some stuff up about it because like I wanted to know if they had done anything else and stuff like that. And then I came across the story and I like unlocked something in my brain. I remembered this from a couple of years ago when they did this. Is that completely without explaining to anybody? They just raised the price on this thing, and then like it's just been $250 in the Switch store ever since.
So why they do that, right? I can tell you why. And we see it with other games as well. Those 99-cent sales. The reason that you do the 99% off sales, because sometimes you'll see Switch games for like a penny, and it's because they're usually $10.
Yeah, right.
And the reason they do that is they drop the price to something that is far like affordable, like amazingly affordable, and then it gets bought up and it shows up in the top sellers list on the Nintendo Switch. This has been how the Nintendo Switch eShop has been functioning since the Switch came around. They realize that there's this manipulation method to get yourself up on the top seller chart. And what they do is they regularly do these week-long sales where the game is like a penny, and then it has this viewed inherent value to be like, oh, I'll pay $10 for it. It's a top-selling game. But
Right.
It's only a top-selling game because a bunch of people bought it when it was a penny last week.
Well, and I was wondering if there was a bit of this kind of in the idea that they don't always have control over that sort of pricing stuff, you know, when Nintendo decides it's going to do one of those things. And so, like, if these guys were getting screwed left, right, and center because their $25 game kept getting sold for 25 cents, they raised it to $250, so they were at least getting $2.50 for the every time it went on sale. I didn't know if that was something to do with it too. I don't know how much control people have over that.
By
sort of
all
stuff in the store.
accounts, that whole manipulation of the market comes specifically from the developer side.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of investigations into this one. I mean, it's only the Switch eShop that has this particular problem where that the charts are manipulated in this way.
Yeah.
So to me, it almost feels like we want to do exactly that manipulation, but we want to make maybe a little bit more. But also, if you see a $250 game available for $250, that animal part of your brain almost cannot resist the urge to purchase it.
Yeah. No, I you know, and I could not tell you what it said in the Switch store when I bought it, to be entirely honest. We were looking at the sales price. It was $2.50, and the preview looked fun. So, like, we downloaded it. So, it may have maybe subconsciously done exactly that to us, right? If that's why we clicked on it. Yeah, I don't know why. $250. Yeah, so anyway, so I've been diving more into that stuff.
Do you have your Switch, like, handy? Are you able to, like, load it up? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do some research. You vamp a little bit. So I'm going to see if it's up there right now.
Yeah. No, so I found myself back in Breath of the Wild, and like I said, I've been trying to take it easy. So I've been doing the old man thing of like waking up at like 5:30 in the morning and like going to read my newspaper. Like I play my Switch for about an hour and a half before work, right? And it's been a really good way for me to re-experience that game. I have taken it really slow, and like I only do like maybe one shrine and then like wander around for a bit and discover some stuff. And it's just been so cool to play it that way. You know, I've so many times that I've gone back to this game, I've kind of sped through and like done like specific goals so fast that, like I said, I get kind of got over. Yeah, I just got over playing it again, and you know that's fine. I played through it once, like, and that's games don't owe me more than that. You know, people out there that think that a game is worth nothing if there's no replay value, you know, that doesn't always fly for me. So yeah, so like it's not. I've never been disappointed in my time with Breath of the Wild, but this time around I'm trying something kind of special and different. Kind of like what I did with Odyssey. You know, I think that Nintendo has a little bit of they want you to look at their games in a very specific way, and the ways in which they pitch them and sell them to you are very, you know, very one-sided, because their games, they've been doing so well at creating these games that allow you to really kind of just do what you want in them. You know, I think of the what's the Pokemon one that came out a couple of months ago? That
Arceus?
Was that the one?
That's essentially Breath of the Wild with Pokemon. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And like the ways in which people were so disappointed with that game because Nintendo was trying to push one kind of narrative on it, but a lot of people found a lot of fun in that game just doing their own thing, right? Like it's weird. Like Nintendo's marketing to older audiences, they've tried so hard to create a system that works for older audiences, but their marketing, I don't think, is caught up. you know, and that seems like an age-old Nintendo problem where they jump headfirst tech-wise into a new thing, but they don't have any of the like, what do you call it, like the knowledge in the background there, the history, right, of people that just like can say, well, you can do it this way, but make sure that you explain it that way. Like that just doesn't happen. Nintendo is just like, guess what? We have online capability now. The end. And it's just like, well, this isn't this isn't online capability as like anybody else is using it. Why? It goes online. It's capable. What more do you want?
Capable of going online.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What more do you want? Yeah. And it's like no, like there's this inherent kind of like old man, like dad-esque nature to Nintendo nowadays that you got to remember whenever they tell you anything, whenever they pitch you anything.
Yeah, it's I can't disagree with that. A lot of big things are happening in the world of Breath of the Wild too, because I'm sure if you're playing it now, you downloaded an update, right?
Yeah.
And that update has completely opened the world of so it is 250 still, and it is not on any of the lists. But I bet it was on the list last week when you were talking about it. I don't know. That's weird. But a lot of speedrun tech has been figured out because of that latest upgrade. You can now walk in the air as long as you're holding something. And it has brought down leaderboards and all sorts of stuff. So you're actually picking a really cool time to get back into Breath of the Wild because it's something that everybody is talking about. And the one thing I think about whenever we go on these Switch nostalgia journeys, you and I, is how our show is older than the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
It's something that I was thinking about as we were playing Mario Kart 8, and I kind of wanted to mention it last week, but, like, that's strange to me. To think that, like, 2 months before that thing dropped on us, we dropped on the world.
Yeah, well, you know, we're getting old. What are you gonna say? But
the Switch is getting old. That's the crazy thing, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
really nuts. Yeah, as I'm like staring down the barrel of possibly buying an OLED one because I'll be honest, I had the opportunity to buy a PS5 this week at market price, not like a sale or anything like that, but I had the opportunity. One was straight up offered to me as the person was purchasing it if I wanted to buy it instead, and I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm still good. I just didn't need it, you know, but I am seriously considering buying a second Switch for the house and getting one of the newer ones.
Yeah. I mean, Switch, as we've already talked about, because it came out during the time of this, buying a second Switch is always the best value.
Yeah.
And now that you have the OLED model, which has the better kickstand, the actual built-in wired internet connection, and that screen that is just so beautiful. And has not shown any burn-in. I think
nice.
Like someone did the test and it took over 1,000 hours before there was burn-in on the screen. And even then it was like the faintest bit of burn-in. Because that was the fear, right? Having an OLED system or screen is burn-in is going to be a problem. So everybody was like, well, I don't want to get the OLED Switch because burn-in. But I think it was Wolfden on YouTube that did the test and just had their Switch running.
Well, and there's ways that you can definitely combat that too. I mean, like making sure that like brightness levels and stuff like that. I appreciate the concern. Nintendo has always been kind of iffy on their when it
QA.
Comes to, and on the hardware specifically for the Switch, right? Like the fact that Joy-Con still gets sold with major drift issues is insane to me. Like I was actually thinking about this the other day because we had some friends over and we had to put together a couple of Joy-Con full controllers to play a game, and I was like, I'll take the bad controller, you take the good one. And it was reminding me of like when I was a kid of like, I'll take the one that has the wonky left button bumper, like or that kind of crap. And it's just like, how are we still doing this with the Switch this late into its life cycle, that I don't have the ability to at least go out and buy a better, like it should have come with good ones to begin with, but that we're beyond that. Why do I not have the ability to go out and buy guaranteed to work forever Joy-Cons at this point? Why, like, or at least give me something that's not going to start drifting 6 months after I buy it. Like, it's crazy.
Because you don't make money on the razor, you make money on the blades. And the Joy-Con is the blade, man. Like, that's it.
But that is, if they were cheap enough where people were buying them on the reg, I believe you. But I know more people who just don't play their Switch now because of their Joy-Cons than go out and buy new Joy-Cons. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, but
I don't know people out there that are. I don't think they're making that much money on people buying the new ones that often, because I think a lot more people are more pissed and not buying them, period, afterwards.
But I think that that's their marketing, regardless of the fact that it is
Failing?
successful or not. I
Yeah.
think that's still the way that they're looking at it, is we could fix this problem, or we have an accepted bit of planned obsolescence in every single one of our controllers.
But see, this is so far beyond planned obsolescence. Like some people are reporting drift weeks after getting certain ones and things like that. They had an entire system set up for you to send in your controllers for them to fix them for you for free. Like they admitted that this was something terrible and wrong. And then the fact that they didn't do anything to even pretend to correct it. Don't even like they didn't even put something out and be like, this won't have as much drift. Like we didn't even get that. It's just wild to me.
I know. I agree. I don't disagree. But here's the thing. Say you have Joy-Con drift, right? Mm-hmm. And then a game, and you're like, well, I'm not playing Switch now because my controller doesn't work. But then a game comes along that you're interested in. And we have talked about the fact that Nintendo is very good at figuring out that release schedule to get you interested in a game.
Sure.
So then it comes along like, oh, but I want to play that game. That's one of the reasons I got the Switch. So then you go out, you get the game, and you get maybe a Pro Controller. Or you get the game and you get replacement Joy-Cons. Like, it's one of those things where, like, even though if it doesn't make money every day, right?
Yeah.
If it makes them an additional amount of money at the bottom line, I understand why they would still want to engage in the practice.
I mean, like, but if when the Red Ring situation was going on for the Xbox 360, if Microsoft turned around and said, well, just buy yourself a new one, we just view it as planned obsolescence, people would have there would have been pitchforks out. There were already, and that's not what they were saying. They were saying they wanted to fix it. And so it's just wild to me how much we've kind of in the last 10 years grown to just be okay with that kind of bullshit, I guess.
Well, I guess the Red Ring is an interesting parallel because it's not a parallel, unfortunately, because that was on the manufacturing end. That was specifically how Microsoft Xbox 360s were constructed, that was a thing that could happen, right? They were producing them too fast.
How is that not what's going on with drift in the buttons, though?
Because Nintendo Switch does not build that joystick component. That is a third-party device, right? Because that's the reason why you have drift on everything. That's the reason why your Xbox Series X controller drifts, why your PlayStation 5 controller drifts. The fact of the matter is, we need to develop a better analog joystick. And until that happens, all of these companies kind of get to turn a blind eye to it, because it's not like Nintendo said, this is our brand new analog Switch and it's going to be completely different from everything else that you see on the market.
There is something going on, though, because Joy-Cons are drifting in a way and quicker and faster and worse than any system I have ever heard of.
I mean, you say that, but the PlayStation 5 controllers, another good thing that you passed up on it, they die so fast.
I guess, yeah. I can't speak to some of the newer stuff, but somebody on his 7th year of his PS4,
right. But that's what I'm saying, is that you need to consider that, like, even though Switch is technically a Gen 8 console, the Gen 9 stuff is having the same issue because they're using the same technology for the analog sticks. And it's all this separate company that supply. I mean, that's the reason why it's so easy to replace them. And all these people who are doing like driftless solutions for analog sticks, those solutions are cost prohibitive. So it wouldn't make sense for these companies, Sony, Nintendo, who are admittedly already losing money on the console side of things so that they can hook you into the IV of their exclusive games,
right,
to go and develop something.
And then oversell the software, right?
Yeah. It's a weird thing, because it's not like, because you bring up the Red Ring of Death seems like it would be a perfect parallel, right? And Microsoft did whatever they could to fix it. But the problem there is Microsoft saying, oh, we're trying to produce them so quickly that this defect is just being overlooked. Nintendo is like, we're working with what we have, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. So if you want to like burn down somebody's factory, burn down the supplier. And maybe they own the supplier on some level, but like that's also why they're like, we'll repair them for you. But understand that you're not getting a better joystick. You're getting the same joystick.
Yeah.
And it's really, the craziest thing about it is, you talk about we've become okay with it over the last 10 years. In terms of controller defects, we've always kind of been okay with them.
Yeah.
Like you said, you had the wonky L button when you were playing Super Nintendo, and you're like, well, you're the guest, so I'll take the wonky controller.
Yeah.
Like it's something, and because I watch a lot of these guys who speed run, and they'll be like, man, my controller is failing. I got to do something with my controller. And I think, like, we never really talked like that before, but what we've realized now is that controllers break down.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, it's what made stuff like the Steam controller such an innovation, was the fact that there was so much going on there that was going to not be this, right? The potential to not be this. I think about when the Xbox One first came out with the recessed D-pad, and that being the thing that everybody focused on, right? Is because they did try and create a new thing instead of having you instead of having to depend on analog sticks like this. There's people are trying. It's just the ways in which we kind of have gotten okay with throwing our money at a problem, and as you pointed out, that's kind of always been the case. That's always been it. But just it is very apparent in something when you start talking about something like a children's entertainment toy. And I love the Switch, and it is definitely a system that can be used by older gamers, but it markets itself as a family device, right? Yeah. It just seems extra gross, as things often do, once you start talking about this is a thing that you're pushing on family and kids and stuff, and so you have that voice in the house that maybe doesn't understand budgets, that is now screaming at you because their Joy-Con's not working, and so you go out and just buy another one. It just feels like it becomes much more exploitive. Yeah. I mean, and that's
the fact of the matter is, society, the term planned obsolescence is fucking gross. It is just a gross sentiment, and it's a thing that we know exists, right? Because look at appliances from the 70s that still work, but if you buy a refrigerator tomorrow, it's going to be dead in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, the term planned obsolescence in terms of tech is definitely gross. There are ways in which planned obsolescence has existed throughout history, like creating, for instance, a board or government body in order to eliminate a problem. Then you're planning, you're working towards planned obsolescence. It's a term used in nonprofits all the time that is extremely meaningful.
Right. Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, in terms of technology and consumerism.
Whenever money's involved, right? Whenever
money has to pass hands, it's one of those situations where, and they made us okay with it. That's pretty much the boiled down, the crystals that are left behind, is the fact that there has been a big push in our generation to make us okay with the fact that the things that we purchase one day will just no longer work.
Yeah, we're gonna start screaming like a couple of old men here. They do, I bought a fridge in the 50s that lasted 20 years. Why does this new one only last 5? Yeah,
but that's the exact thing. That thing you're talking about with those kids. They understand that the Joy-Con will one day break. Right? Yeah. And hopefully those kids' parents, because they're probably the same generation as us, have that same understanding that this stuff is designed to break. It's part of the freaking philosophy of the design, is that eventually this is going to fail. Because it's part of how they make money. I mean, there's no bigger thing than that than expiration dates on soda, right? How does soda go bad, Sejohn? Is literally almost all preservatives.
Well, it goes flat, but yes.
But it shouldn't go flat and like that. But even then, once it goes flat, it's not technically bad, right? Pepsi sells it as nitrogen infused. But it's one of those situations where the reason why soda started to have expiration dates, right? And I remember when Pepsi introduced it and they called it the freshness date, right? After this date, it's not going to be fresh anymore. And it's one of those situations where okay, that's it. But really, that means, because it's on there, that supermarkets are not supposed to legally sell it anymore once it's past that expiration date. So it's a way to ensure for Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all of these companies that those expired products get rotated out for new stock. It's all about making more money for the guys in charge.
So that's why we propose everyone start dumpster diving at their local grocery store, because you're just throwing that shit out at the end of the day.
I lost a job once because I was told I had to throw away all the soda that had expired, and I like took a couple of cans and I like told the kids, I'm like, I was working for like the parks department in town, and I'm like, if you guys want a soda, like it's all trash anyway, it's expired, so it might not taste great, it might be a little bit flat, but like it's going in the dumpster anyway. And they're like, you're fired for that. It's stealing. And I'm like, is it stealing? Like I was told to throw it away.
The laws and legality around literal dumpster diving and digging through trash for stuff is insane, and every place it's different, but they're all kind of built in the same way. It's still theft, which is a conversation I don't know if we could even begin to parse.
Not as a conversation that we kind of stumbled into, having nostalgic feelings for the Nintendo Switch. Like it's not what we prepared and planned to talk about.
No, but want to talk about dumpster diving. The Nintendo Switch e-store, man, shovelware is back, folks. Did you know that? You can turn your Switch into a clock.
The AAA clock. I was just looking at it.
Yeah, I cannot believe it. I remember there being a time where Nintendo said we're going to put our foot down. I think it was on the DS, maybe, or one of those. It was
DSi. DSiWare was a glut.
And they said
shovelware.
we're not going to let this happen. Like they put the clamp down, especially because a lot of it was kind of pornographic. So like the idea being that Nintendo was going to start putting kind of the clamp down on it. And so I feel like on the Wii U you didn't see this too often, right? But man, on the Switch it is there again. Everything from clocks and flashlights to hentai Tetris. It's just everything is back.
Right, but that's because they realized that they weren't making the money. They're like, we're going to shut this stuff down, and then, but people aren't making money from us. And there's the Switch tax, too, right? All those clocks and flashlights and hentai Tetris games I can get on the Steam store for cheaper, but on Switch, they're like, we add a 50% surcharge to it, right? Like, we get 50% of it, and the developer's like, fine, I was making $5 on it, now I'll raise the price to $10.
Oh, it's even worse than that, man.
Yeah.
Half of the stuff on there is just like itch.io games and stuff, like just online web browser games that you could play for free if you just opened your PC, right? Just go to the library and play it. Like, don't bother spending it, but it's like $5 to $10 on the Switch just because of exactly what you said. Like, they want to get it on the Switch, they want to put it up for a certain amount of money, but then Nintendo's like comes in and is like, well, we're going to take the majority of that, thank you. So then they're just like, well, screw it then, make it $5. But yeah, I ran into stuff that I was just like, I could play this for free right now online. Why would I pay for it here?
Because then it's on your Switch.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, it's really, and then the grossest thing about it, right? If we want to look at the evolution, the whole chain of that, are those YouTube channels that are dedicated to the top 10 best bargain games on the Switch right now. And every week they comb through all of that shovelware that's on the Switch and recommend the ones that are worth buying.
Yeah.
And then they're making money off of that. Those creators who are making that list. I'm not saying that, I mean, like, get your ducats where you can get your ducats. I'm not trying to do it. But, like, it then keeps that circle turning. Because there are people who realize, well, by going through this literal garbage that is on the Switch eShop and telling people the stuff that's worthwhile, I can make money. And then, and it's not like Nintendo isn't internet savvy enough. They might not know how to provide internet on their systems. They know how to get money off of the internet. That's why they copyright blocked the fucking Dungeon song from Super Mario World, to the fact that all of the revenue from this is now ours. Because you dared to go into the dungeon in Super Mario World. Like, I don't know. It's just a crazy sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is buck wild, but, you know, Nintendo is not the only ones doing it. I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I want to make sure that we're clear on. We're giving a lot of shit to Nintendo because that's just where I've been for the last week, right? That's the environment that I've been in. But like this kind of shit happens on PlayStation too. And like when I go looking for games there, and it becomes kind of a nightmare because I can't find the cool like indie game that might have a chance at like hooking me because I have to get through like 6 different runner games that are all from the same guy. That one just has a sandwich, one has a piece of tofu, one has a zombie, one has but it's the same freaking game. game, just released 6 different times. Like, and you know, they somehow get roped up in the major sales and stuff that they do for like summer sales and stuff. So like they're always showing up constantly. It's become impossible to find anything fun. And God forbid, like I try going to a physical store, a brick and mortar store to try and buy a game nowadays. Like if I can find one that still sells them.
Yeah, I don't want to dive into that. Like my brick and mortar experience has been so reduced to the fact that I realized that like going and hunting for toys was pretty much my big cardio, and it's just like I'm walking and running into stores is just not happening anymore.
Yeah.
And that's disappointing because, you know, those big box stores is air conditioned and I'm getting my steps in, but I'm not
like
doing
you said,
it. Yeah.
well, like you said with you and Dale, like sometimes it's just about trying to get out of the house. So many of us work from home nowadays that like
Yeah.
I don't want to be home all the time, you know? So like I want to go out and do something, even if it's just walk around a Barnes and Noble. Nope, can't find one of those either. Like the ways though in which like gaming specifically, the ways in which it has been so walled off, like the finding anything fun or new or innovative has been so difficult, especially now with the last 3 years with COVID and stuff. Like it's just been so hard to find anything exciting or fun. And I know that it's out there. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm saying I wish that it was more easily accessible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's sad. It is something that I'm legitimately sad about when I consider it, and I don't want to be sad when I consider it, but it is because someone mentioned recently that we just made it okay for leaks about video games. Like if something from a video game leaks, we're just kind of all right with it. But movies, if that type of stuff, we see how people react. And extrapolating away from that commentary, I realize cinema is almost, well, it is this year, 100 years old, right? Like the first movies were in 1912.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're 110 years old, right? Like before we get that, and we're almost at the 100th anniversary of the start of the Academy Awards, right? Where they existed so long that we should probably start giving ourselves prizes for the best one, right? That's how accessible they are. Video games really kind of started in the 70s, the 1970s. So like they're about 50 years old, give or take. So
right.
It is a younger industry, and because those same people who were creative in making movies knew the pitfalls of what was going on in cinema when it came to not being able to maximize profits, they avoided those pitfalls with video games.
Yeah.
They completely programmed us a different way in terms of what it means to be upset to know something about a game. In a movie, if you know the end of the movie, like you're kind of disappointed. In gaming, you're excited because you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what I have to fight through to get there, right? Like that's going to be my reward.
Well, I mean, it's like, and then you look at something like literature, where we still have people that enjoy reading classics, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not because we don't know what happens at the end of Romeo and Juliet. Some people just want to read Romeo and Juliet, right? It's just, and so people just don't seem to mind at all in that world. Now, that's not entirely true. Obviously, with new books all the time, people always get crunchy about that sort of stuff. But like,
yeah, I know Romeo and Juliet's a weird one because it's like 300 years old.
But that's what I mean, is that when you look at something like literature, we've got so much more time there that we've seemed to have moved away from caring about that. You know,
Yeah.
like it's definitely a timing thing. It's definitely a what has come before, you know, hindsight thing for sure. We've just been we consume things differently. We talk about the idea of consumption as if it's a monolith, and that's not fair, right? And so because of that, does kind of become a case by case basis. It's why it becomes so hard when people talk about pop culture writ large having this issue, and then people will come out of the woodwork being like, well, that's not true here in this video game, and that's not true here in this movie, and that's because while the vague statement has some truth to it, obviously there's exceptions to it all. I don't know. This becomes a really difficult conversation too because of people's tastes and stuff too, right? Because I could have this exact conversation about not being able to find anything on the Nintendo store or the PlayStation store, and somebody out there might be way into hentai Tetris. So, you know, that might be the thing.
Yeah. And that should be available too. I recently discovered that list of banned games on Twitch. Games that if you play on Twitch, your channel will just get shut down. And that blew me away. That's a thing that exists. That there's a banned game list.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the idea that like there should just be parental controls in place, and there's, you have to monitor what your kids are doing online and stuff like that. But you also know that like as kids we just get into anything, right?
Oh yeah.
And so there is definitely that aspect of just like, do they want to take that risk?
Yeah, no,
And nobody wants
they,
to take
they
that
don't
risk.
want to. And then some of them, like, you read through it and it's games that are, like, about being a rapist and raping people. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Or there's ones that have, like, heavy terrorism vibes, like, that, like this is trying to radicalize people or make light of what
Yeah.
terrorism is in the world. And some of them I'm like, well, those I understand. Like, I kind of get the argument behind that. But then you look at stuff like The Guy Game as a banned game, and I'm like, that's like tame compared to some of the stuff that is just in video games now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a
It's
trivia
like
game that gives you
BMX Triple
scenes
X.
from Girls Gone Wild. Like, yeah, BMX Triple X is another one.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, naked and fucking bicycles.
I mean, if you played Thug 2, you probably saw some stuff too, but whatever. I mean, but it all becomes subjective nonsense when it comes to that, right? But the ways in which that Nintendo and PlayStation and Microsoft and all those guys like use that kind of gray, like cloudy area that we're all kind of in with this shit to try and like push things and not, or take advantage of things, it's becoming a little too much to handle sometimes.
Yeah, the fact that it's now like semi-acceptable being sold on the eShop. Like, think about Bubble Bath Babes or Custer's Revenge, those
Right.
unlicensed games that we saw on like the Atari 2600 or the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now they're licensed, right?
Right.
By the very fact that they're carrying them in their online storefronts that they do cultivate, right? It's not like Steam where it's truly the Wild West.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like Nintendo prides itself on there is a level of cultivation because we don't want to be what happened on the DSi.
They were the first people to introduce the idea of the Nintendo seal of approval, right?
Yeah.
Like that's always been part of their history, is that you can trust this game because it has the Nintendo seal of approval. And it's that same idea, is that they put it up on their shop. There's a level of which we say, okay, Nintendo approves this.
Yeah. And that originally that Nintendo seal of approval was to keep you from buying unlicensed games that Nintendo didn't approve of on the Nintendo Entertainment System. But now, frickin' 40 years removed from that seal of approval, by putting it in the eShop, it's implied, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you taught us that you approve of the stuff that you're willing to sell to us.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing, and stuff that like I don't really think about until I get deep into it. While we're still on the subject of video games, and Nintendo Switch and all of that, Blossom's Tale 2 comes out on Tuesday. I intend to play it, and right now it is available 50% off. Not a sponsor or anything like that.
The sequel is, or
the
the
sequel.
first?
The sequel is if you pre-order it. So on Tuesday it will be the full price, but right now I think it's like $14.39 or $13.89.
Yeah.
Like,
About the first one, I've been playing through that too, on kind of separately, but that's with the family. Did we talk about that?
No, we're not. I mean, I've started it up again. I think we talked about you bought Blossom Tale maybe off mic. But yeah, you had mentioned that you had picked it up. And I've had it on Steam. I got it really cheap on a Steam sale because I had it on Dale's Switch. I specifically bought it on Dale's Switch, and I never finished it because I don't have access to Dale's Switch all the time.
Yeah.
So
It's a blast.
It is a blast. I got
yeah.
back to where I stopped playing on Dale's Switch before.
Nice.
So that feels pretty good. And I hope to be done with it on Tuesday so that I can start up and play that one from the beginning. And maybe it not being so much stuff that I've already done before, I can be engaged in it. But I'm having a difficult time getting engaged in video games right now, which I mean is exactly why you're going back on your nostalgia tour.
Yeah.
So it's not just you. It is something about the water in 2022 in terms of games. And on the heels of everything that was just delayed. Like, they decided this week to announce a bunch of delays. And for every Hogwarts Legacy, we're like, maybe that's the right idea. The other ones are disappointing. Stuff that, like, we were looking forward to buoy and drive the back half of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But there are other things besides video games. What else have you been doing?
I've finally seen all 5 Scream movies.
Oh man.
Yeah, buried that lead.
Congratulations, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, how many have you seen? Have you seen all five? Or I imagine you've seen through
Um,
four. You seem like I've seen Scream 1 through 4.
what's the one with Emma Roberts with the big reveal at the end about Emma Roberts?
Spoilers for Scream 4.
That is that four?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Spoilers about Scream the series, the end. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's
like we mentioned, we were going to talk about a movie franchise. I don't know what you expected.
but if you haven't seen the fifth one, I'm not going to talk about the fifth one, other than the fact to say, is the first good Scream movie.
Nice.
And that's like that might sound rude or anything like that, but it feels like a real movie. Like it feel like there is some framing in it that's like, this is cinematic. Where like it feels really good. Scream 5 was really, really enjoyable. And they used the whole requel thing of it, and in that same meta thing, like, so I saw the first Scream during that year when I tried to watch 365 movies. And I looked at the Scream franchise as, there's 4 movies, like, right out of the way, right? I'll just sit and I'll watch all 4 movies one day. And I hated my time with Scream 1 so much that I just watched 3 other movies. Like, I'm like, I can find 3 other movies. I don't want to live in this world anymore. And then when Sarah Port Jr. was in its like heyday, Zach and Dale did a day where they watched through all 4 movies, and I'm like, maybe I should give them another chance. And I watched the second one, and Jerry O'Connell, so like, of course I'm going to give it more of a chance, right? And also like, I can't think of her last name, the Jackie from Roseanne. Lori what?
Lori Metcalf.
Metcalf. I was gonna say Lawfren, and that's not her name. That's one of Adam Sandler's friends. And Lori Metcalf is excellent in that movie, and it really feels like a sequel that tried to improve upon the first movie. Like, we had some really good stuff in that first movie. Let's take it to the next level. But so this week, what I watched was Scream 3, Scream 4, and Scream 5. Scream 5 I actually finished an hour and a half ago. We watched it this morning, so it's real fresh in my mind. And it's worth getting Paramount Plus right now, even just for a month. It's still just $10 for the no ad plan. I feel like that's probably going to go up soon, since everything is going up, but that's another topic on the show that we will address. But $10 gets you access to Scream 5, and for the rest of August, the other Scream movies, if you want to refresh your memory. That's the only reason why I did it, is I wanted to watch the new one, because everybody talked about how the new Scream was actually good.
I mean, I have to say, I wonder if it's because Wes Craven's not at the helm on it. You know, I think 4 might have been the last one that he touched,
Yeah,
right?
4 was the last one that he touched, and 4 is pretty good. Here's the problem with the Scream movies. They hook me in the beginning. All of the Scream movies hook me in the beginning. They do a good job of kind of getting me invested. And then they turn into these fucking slogs as they meander their way to the reveal, with fucking misdirects and red herrings and like gratuitous violence that isn't even like any fun anymore. It's just like, yeah, we get it. Okay, well, that person's not the killer, or maybe they are the killer, because you don't give a fuck about that.
But how do you feel about that in terms of them being satirical? Because like I don't disagree that happens, but I feel like that happens because it's a commentary on the way that those films were made. I think the bigger thing for me is that Scream has been going on so long that it has lasted longer than I think the entirety of the golden age of slasher films in general, right?
Yeah, it's 25 years old.
Right, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's wild that like we're still looking at Scream movies coming out, because like slasher films kind of have died out and have not really been huge besides Scream over the last like 15 years. People try and bring it back, and like there's always like the odd one that pops up. X, I know, is really good. It's getting that sequel. We'll see how the sequel does. Like there's like 1 or 2 that you can point to. Hatchet, I think like one of them is accepted as like a good one. I don't remember liking any of them, but but like there's not really like a slasher franchise to make fun of anymore. So you're pointing to these elements that are definitely present. I think they're purposeful, but I think the reason they don't land for you is that there's not a genre that they're satirizing anymore.
Well, I think the other thing for me, and this is, we just watched Zohan, which, spoilers for the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe if you're going to go over there. Like, we both kind of decided that it was supposed to be satire.
I mean, it's definitely a spoof of some kind,
it's
right?
a spoof,
like
parody, satire like that. Just because you're satirizing something bad doesn't mean that you can't be good. Is I think the thing. Like, if you're like, oh, but we're being beholden to the movies that came before, and it's like, yeah, that's nice to say, but like, if your movie is boring as shit, I'm still bored by the movie.
Yeah,
like you just
more to my point is that I know that there are a lot of people out there that don't find that stuff boring. They like Mr. X, they like red herrings, they like those exact moments that you feel like are beefing up the movie, like padding for the plot.
I don't think
and all that.
Every Scream movie is 2 hours long. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think any Scream movie should be longer than 90 minutes. And because I can think of 30 minutes in each of those films that could be cut out. And I'm not talking like gratuitous moments in the films. I'm talking tightening up scenes and just like pacing issues.
Well, and again, so like I said, that comes back to something like having somebody like Wes Craven at the helm who he makes a certain type of movie, and clearly it doesn't work for you. And I don't love Wes Craven either. I don't think that he makes poor movies by any chance of the imagination, but it's not like he's like the first director I think of when somebody says, think of a good visual style or think of a good artistic style. I don't think of Wes Craven, right?
It's but the other thing is, if it is satirizing something, it's not really satirizing something that I was ever a huge fan of, right? My favorite Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. And the reason for that is because it's just fucking crazy. It's just a crazy gore fest, and Jason is resurrected because Tommy sticks a fucking cross in his heart and it gets electrocuted by lightning. Yeah. Like it's just like, this is just absurd. And then I think about like the horror movies that I was into in high school, and it was The Evil Dead, which is again just being absurd. It's just Sam Raimi having fun. So I don't know. The one like slasher movie that I think of, and you were part of it, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When we watched the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre at my house that night, and I'm like, this is a fun time, because it's just a bunch of people watching it. And then we went and saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre Beginning, which is somehow a prequel to that movie.
Yeah.
And we had that same like sort of time, but like getting the point, like, well, this is just the same thing. Like, they're already kind of satire in a way, the slasher film genre. Like, after the first one, they realized that like this is ridiculous, but they want us to make a sequel because it made a shit ton of money, so we'll do it. We'll just keep doing it until they stop telling us to make the movies. So it's really weird to be like, I'm going to expose it. I'm going to expose all the problems in the slasher genre. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really necessary.
No, yeah, I mean, and there's a certain type of person out there that these movies are made for, and I think that type of that group is smaller and smaller every time a new one comes out, right? I think when the first Scream came out, it was hitting at a cultural moment when everybody was kind of into this idea, and so they were all for it, and it hit huge, right? And I think every movie since then, you could argue that the audience has just shrunk smaller and smaller,
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I'll even say that. I will admit that it's kind of unfortunate that that there are people who legitimately like these movies. There's a reason why when Scream 5 dropped, it hit like gangbusters and everybody was talking about it again. And part of that is that requel of it all, right? That bringing in the legacy characters while telling a new story that everybody is a huge fan of right now in Hollywood, right? Because you're respecting the old, but you're also creating something new. It's what Days of Future Past tried to do, but like was apparently 12 years too early on.
Yeah.
That seems about right. Maybe 7, but it's still, it just, I don't know. I was excited to watch it. There's some stuff that happens in it where I'm just like, oh, I would have thought that you would have never referenced that again, right? But I guess the other thing I'll say, having just lived through all the Scream stuff, is Scream 3. Don't even fucking watch that movie.
I think that's always been kind of the rule for that
I mean,
series, right?
it should not count at all. It's not Kevin Williamson who wrote it, right? Which the new one isn't Kevin Williamson who wrote it, but that's fine because it's not supposed to be, right?
It's supposed to be a
Yeah,
yeah.
it's supposed to be
Whereas
like
three
a
is supposed to
reboot.
be a direct sequel
3 is
to
supposed
what's
to
happened.
turn it into a trilogy.
Yeah.
And Kevin Williamson is suddenly a huge force in Hollywood, directing Teaching Mrs. Tingle and writing for Dawson's Creek and writing 2 other like slasher horror movies that were coming out around the same time. So he has an outline for the movie, and he's like, I really want to write a Scream 3. I think we could do it good. But the Weinsteins with Miramax and Dimension, they're like, no, this movie needs to come out now. We need to strike while the iron is hot. So they hire Erin, I can't think of Erin's last name, to write the movie. And like historically, Scream 3, none of the characters act like they've acted ever before.
Yeah, it's really weird. The even from the opening with Cotton, right? Because that's the one that opens with Liev Schreiber getting
With Cotton Weary and his girlfriend, who I had asked this in our trivia to see if anybody knew it. It's Kelly Rowland. And I'm like, am I supposed to know who this woman is? The whole time. I'm like, because I knew who Drew Barrymore was.
Right.
I knew who Heather Graham was. Like, I what are you doing? I know who Jada Pinkett Smith and Roman Malkany are. Like,
right. Yeah, it's a really wild. It's a wild movie because like then the whole incestual reveal or like the secret twin stuff. It just like it leans. It tries so hard, and you know what I think it is I think it's a post-Scary Movie version of that. You know what I mean? Like it is so infected by the fact that it wanted to be the spoof film, but then it got overseen by this other one, and everybody took it too seriously. And it's trying so hard to not be taken seriously that it's like it's like the preppy kid in class trying to be the class clown that day, right? Like the all A student that's like, I can make a joke too, and it's just like, calm down, like. The whole movie just goes too far and too hard. It's just like, what is happening?
So much of the film is just abandoned halfway through. So Erin, I wish I could remember the last name there.
Okay, are you looking for the writer's name?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look it up.
Yeah, it's fine. You can look it up. But then Wes Craven comes in and redoes that script, and then they bring in a third person who is completely uncredited, who does a third script for Scream 3. And like, it's cute that in the movie they talk about, oh, we don't know what's going on. There's 3 different scripts. There's 3
Aaron
different.
Kruger. You couldn't think of the last name Kruger?
I'm not a big fan of the Elm Street movies. I mean, that just feels like a fake name on some level, right? Like, it feels like maybe Wes Craven wrote it, and then that ghostwriter came in to make it feel real. But Aaron Kruger gets producer credits on other movies, so, like, I believe there's an Aaron Kruger out there. It may be a screen name.
He wrote 3 of the 5 installments for Transformers, just to get that out there.
Let me guess. Revenge of the Fallen,
Keep going.
Extinction, and Last Night.
No, Revenge of the Fallen, Extinction, and Dark of the Moon.
Oh, really? Dark of the Moon's pretty good. I would have
he also wrote Ghost in the Shell, the American adaptation.
Oh, that movie that you still haven't seen and people are mad because you have an opinion on.
No. We did an entire episode about how I did end up watching it, and my opinion was actually
didn't change.
Rare.
My opinion was right on. I can judge things without seeing them. Hashtag Sejohn Sarowitz said it, kinda. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put that on you at all.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah,
Thanks,
so the Aaron Kruger, and they like try to work it into the movie that like, this movie's falling apart. We got all this stuff, and they don't want the internet to ruin the film. And it's just like, that stuff is kind of like good commentary, but then it's not great commentary when what you're spoofing there is the production of this actual movie that I'm watching. And they abandoned the whole spoilers for Scream 3, right? I said we're not going to spoil Scream 5 because it just came out this year, but I'm going to spoil the rest of the other ones. I don't give a shit. Emily Mortimer's character, for so much of the movie, was meant to be the second killer, because Scream 3 is the one where there's only one killer. They're not working in tandem with anybody. But in the script, they were working in tandem with Emily Mortimer's Angelina Tyler character.
Right.
And just the way that the script changed, it ended up just being Scott Foley's Roman. Sydney's half brother from when her mom went to Hollywood and was raped on a casting couch in order to get roles, which, like, that also weirdly hits close to home, considering it's Bob and Harvey Weinstein who are the producers on that film.
Yeah.
Like, it's some weird fucking shit in that movie. But, like, and even worse than that, like, in Scream 3, you see Roman's dead body. And, like, Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers checks his pulse, and she's like, he has no pulse, he's dead. And then Wes Craven coming out, he's like, there are ways to slow your pulse so that you mimic a dead body. And it's like, yeah, and this fucking chuckle nut knows how to do that. And then Wes Craven also, in the big box set, like, it comes with a compendium, and in that, it's a list of all the people who die. And even though we see Angelina Tyler stabbed, her body is dragged away, and we never see it again. So she's not on that list, which prompts a bunch of people to believe that she was involved in the killings in Scream 3, and she's the only killer who ever got away with it. And it's just like, that's wishful thinking, guys. That is you, like, filling in bad shit in this movie that, like, and they even tried to do that scene with Jamie Kennedy in the third movie where, like, he shot a video will so that they could survive if there's a third movie. And it's like, we'll give him every ounce of wording in order to explain away all the bullshit in this movie. And, like, even then, because that was clearly an afterthought, they never listened to his advice. Where in every other movie, they, like, take that moment to be like, oh God, the rules. We need to remember the rules.
Right.
Like, we had a whole scene where we talked about the rules. But, like, no, we gave him the rules later. And the rules basically amount to the killer is indestructible this time. And all bets are off. Which is to explain away the science fiction-y vibes of the voice box being able to mimic other voices perfectly instead of just being the, do you like scary movies?
Right.
Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah, no, three is insane. I mean, it feels like it's almost trying to make a joke about how the third of horror franchises always just become something else, to the point of something like Halloween, where it becomes a completely different concept, right?
Well, it becomes the original concept, because Halloween was supposed to be an anthology film series about things that happened on Halloween. But then when Mike Myers hit so big, they're like, you're not doing another fucking movie, James Carpenter. Sorry.
James Carpenter. Yeah, no, you got to do this.
You have to do another Mike Myers movie. And then he's like, fine, but now I'm doing my movie about magical Halloween masks and bug people.
Celtic bug people.
I love that movie. I love that movie.
That movie's ridiculous.
Up top, left, right. It is one of the most ridiculous films I've ever seen. Yeah. But it checks out. It's one of the ones that, like, I've never seen Halloween 1 or 2. Like, just reveals upon reveals here. But working at the video store, I saw the cover for that movie, and I'm like, I need to watch this movie. This does not seem like Michael Myers. No, and turns out the reason for that is it's not. It's just not. But the other thing is, like, Scream 3 also has that really great moment where Sydney is in the sets of her house. Yeah. Which are awesome. Like, those are great moments. I don't know.
Conceptually, there's a lot of really good stuff going on there. It just is executed horribly. You know, that's just kind of the big thing about that movie, infamously, is that it feels like there, again, so much potential that's just wasted.
Yeah. I don't know. And I didn't realize that because, like, I know a bunch of people who talk about these movies with great reverence. So I was, like, excited to go and watch them, which is why I was disappointed when I watched Scream the first time. Specifically because there's a weird science episode that does it better. Because it's 30 minutes as opposed to 2 hours. And, you know, I really like Lisa Angel. That's just the fact. Vanessa Angel. Lisa being the genie's name in Weird Science. But I don't know. So, like, I'm happy I've seen all 5 of them. I will forever recommend Scream 5. It is such a good movie. I don't know if it's a good movie because I saw everything else or just the fact that, like, they made a really fucking good movie. Like, I think you need to see Scream in order to appreciate it. Like, I don't know. If you're somebody out there who's only ever seen the new Ghostbusters Afterlife, and didn't know anything before going into it, I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah.
because I don't know, it's super good. The new Scream was really, really enjoyable. And it's available on Paramount Plus. And if you get Paramount Plus, you'll also get the new Beavis and Butthead show, which I didn't realize they were doing like iCarly or Good Fight, where it's a new episode each week. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to watch one episode. See how we're doing with the new Beavis and Butthead show. And then, like, I'm like, all right, fine, I'll watch the second episode, too. And by the second episode, I was hooked. I'm like, damn it, they got me. And I've never really been a Beavis and Butthead fan. We've talked about that many times on the show, but they really just hooked me with those first two. And then, like, oh, come back next Thursday for a new episode. And I'm like, son of a bitch, you got me. And
you got new weekly watching there, bud.
What really has me, though, is when, like, the music video commentary that Beavis and Butthead was so known for, they're doing that. They are watching music videos, and they do one on Cade's Dogs, What I've Been Looking For, or I don't know the name of it. Cade Dodds, he's a country singer, and it is one of the, like, spot-on funniest Beavis and Butthead deconstruct a music video segments I've seen in a long time. It is so fucking good.
Nice.
Like, to the fact that, like, my parents are coming back from, they've been away this week, like, just having a good time away from their kids, and I'm gonna make them watch it because they love country music and I want them to get dressed down by Beavis and Butthead.
Oh man, excellent.
Like, it's super good. And then they also do, like, other YouTube videos as well. So they're not just doing music videos, they're doing YouTube videos. And then, so another one that they've done, this is just the first episode too. Like, I feel like an idiot because I'm only referencing stuff they did in the first episode, but they came out of the gate fucking hard with that first episode. I mean, the second part, because they're like 2 11-minute shorts broken up by them deconstructing the music videos or other YouTube videos, is just Beavis talking to Fire for 11 minutes. And Fire not being the god that Beavis always thought he was. He's like, what you must do, Beavis, is go to the track and run around it 4 times. That will be a mile. It will be good for your cardiovascular health.
Excellent. Nice.
It's just good. It's like just good fun stuff. But one of the other ones in the first episode is a guy making his own prison tattoo ink. It's a TikTok video. And it's just Mike Judge is on fire playing these two characters, just tearing apart YouTube videos.
Man.
And it's enjoyable. So you'd have that too. So you could watch Scream 5, you could watch the new Beavis and Butthead, you could watch Beavis and Butthead do the universe. All I'm saying is, if you have a week off coming up, spend the $10 to get the Paramount Plus and experience all of the stuff that they've done for Paramount Plus before they raise the cost to probably like $20 a month. Because they're not making any money anymore. Because it is probably only just my family that subscribes to Paramount Plus. I don't know a lot of other people that I can have conversations about the content with. Right? Because you don't have Paramount Plus, right?
No, Paramount Plus is not one of the ones I've gotten on yet. I don't know. We've got to go back do the culling again of our streaming services. We found ourselves back up at spending way too much money, especially with all the stuff going on with Hulu and Disney right now, and a lot of the stuff slowly starting to show up over there. We're wondering if it's worth just axing Hulu because it's all going to end up on Disney Plus in the next year or so. I don't know.
Until the NBC stuff stops appearing on Hulu, I think that Hulu's going to continue. It's weird. I can't imagine that, like, What We Do in the Shadows is going to ever be on Disney Plus.
I don't know, man, because I mean, people would have said that about things like Deadpool or Logan, right? Like, yeah. But here we are. You know, we'll have to see exactly how things go. I wonder if Hulu. I wonder if you're right, though. I wonder if Hulu becomes kind of like a late night version of Disney Plus. I don't know what else to compare
Adult Swim, the Adult Swim Disney Plus.
Right. Yeah, they just kind of become the place where a lot of stuff exists, but then becomes like a channel available through Disney Plus. Maybe, I don't know, like the hubs that they've got. It's a weird. They've really backed themselves into a corner in terms of format. But I could also see Disney at some point completely changing their format. That's the other wild card in this whole thing, is that at some point, in order to do this, everybody's like, well, they'd have to change A, B, and C in order to do it. And it's like, yeah, they would, and they're Disney, so they'll do that. Right.
We've already seen them change A, B, C, D. Right now, what they'd have to change is X and Y, guys. Like
Yeah.
it's not as simple as you make it sound.
Yeah, there's definitely there's definitely going to be some changes in the future in terms of what streaming is going to be and do. Just there's going to be another kind of twist moment here in all of this. I think the first time around it was the existence of Netflix streaming. Then we had a second wave of things getting weird when everybody had their own service. There's going to be a third wave coming, and I don't know what streaming is going to look like after that. But it's not done settling yet. This is not the way things are going to be forever.
I have a real problem with Disney Plus Premium. I think that's the wordiest, dumbest phrase for what the ad-free version of Disney Plus is going to be once that happens. I think they're doing it in October, right?
DPP?
You down with DPP? I'm down with DPP. You know me. Devon people's pussy. See, I got to say my name there. I love that. I love getting to say my name in things. Yeah, Love Victor is a perfect example of we never thought we'd see it on Disney Plus. And then the third season of Love Victor became a Disney Plus exclusive.
Right.
I don't know. It's just some of the stuff. I think that you hold on to the Hulu aspect of it because of the live TV thing. I know that Wonder Years and I think Abbott Elementary are on Disney Plus now, but I don't think they were going there week to week. I think they were using it to go week to week to Hulu because that's the main draw of Hulu is the fact that you kind of have that on-demand section of it where next day you can watch anything. And I honestly...
Oh, DPPOD. That would be great.
Oh, Devon's people pussy on Devon. I made it easy. I got to say my name twice though, so I'm
also
twice as
pretty
happy.
much sounded like you were just making love to yourself there, which I'm sure is a whole other level of Freud. I don't want to get into.
You know what, man? I'm not gonna let you judge Emma Watson for marrying herself. I'm not gonna let you judge me for being the Wizard of Magic Land. Yep, that's what I did. Some people got it. I bet our Canadian listener is laughing his ass off at that Wizard of Magic Land reference. And then he's like, man, NHL 2002 was the best EA Sports hockey game. It was. It's what got me thrown out of that GameStop in Canada. But that's another story that we've already told before.
Are we wrapping a thread up yet? Because I want to talk about Xanadu.
Yeah, I was about to wrap up the thread in terms of the Disney Plus of it. What we haven't seen on Disney Plus, and until we see it on Disney Plus, I'm not okay saying that Hulu is going the way of the dodo or the dinosaur, is new weekly programming that premieres somewhere else.
So also on TV or also
Yeah.
on a yeah. You're not. I think you're right in that it's going to be that Hulu is always going to remain, but it's going to look very different. It's going to become something. It's not going to be as expansive as it
It's not
currently
going to be as robust.
It's
I don't
not
think it
gonna
will be as robust.
Yeah.
I think it will be specifically for first run television. I don't think that we're going to have the deep library that we're seeing somewhere before. And again, I could be completely wrong, but having it be an on-demand, because also ABC currently for their on-demand offerings is very different from every other network that you get through your cable provider.
Yeah.
So it's like they already have something in the works to do it.
I guess, what does it cost? Like, say that I'm one company that owns all of Bob's Burgers, just as an example, right? I own the entire series of Bob's Burgers.
So you're Disney.
Right. But the point is I'm one company, but I have two different streaming services that I own the rights to put it on both, clearly, because that's how it exists now. It probably only has to live in one place, right? It probably costs me almost nothing to have a second portal to it.
Wait, Bob's Burgers is on two streaming services right now?
Bob's Burgers is on Hulu and on Disney, isn't it?
I didn't know it was on Disney. If it's on Disney, then it got added. The movie is on a bunch of different platforms right now.
Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering. But okay, but would it cost me anything to put it on both?
No, not at all. And that's the truest of it. It would just probably be a gateway portal. Like you would go to disneyplus.com/Bob's Burgers and it would redirect you to the Hulu side of it.
Yeah.
But with the
I don't know
Disney
if
Plus UI.
So I don't know if that's happening yet, but I could see that if that's the case, then I could easily see them keeping them both going, because then we talked about this last week, the idea of double dipping on people, on households, where somebody's paying for HBO, but they're also paying for a different service. They're paying for the cable network, they're paying for whatever, and you're getting twice as much money from them. Disney could be doing that with streaming services and saying, yeah, you have a subscription to Disney, you have a subscription to Hulu. It's pretty much the same library on both, but we get your money. We get twice as much money for giving you two options to get to it.
I mean, if Abbott Elementary is on Disney Plus, they're already doing that with Abbott Elementary.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, because like those are the ones that I would look to. The shows that are ABC shows that are then going to Disney Plus. Now, Wonder Years, as I know, is on there, but I don't think new episodes are doing it. I think it went up once the series ended. It went up on Disney Plus, but it was never on Hulu. Like it's weird. I don't know. It's just something to look at as we continue to see streaming evolve and change, and what it means for everything. In the wake of HBO Max and just the culling that is going on there, and how it will affect the rest of the streaming landscape. But so it's something to keep an eye on. Sejohn wants to talk about Xanadu and end this episode real sad, and I will allow it.
It definitely comes from the we lost oh my god, why did I
Olivia Newton John.
Olivia Newton John, yeah. We lost Olivia Newton John, so we watched, everybody was talking about watching Grease and Xanadu and stuff like that, and in this house, I was the only person that had ever seen Xanadu, so I was like, well, obviously that's the one we have to do, because that movie is batshit insane, and I don't think they believed how batshit insane it was until maybe. There are definitely early signs in the movie in which, a bunch of muses come out of a graffiti painting in a back alley to bring art to the world. But it's probably the moment in which the Don Bluth-esque cartoon... No, I don't think it's even Don Bluth-esque. I think it's actually Don Bluth.
It's Bakshi, right? It's Bakshi-esque, and it's Bluth who might do it.
And the ways that whole animated sequence comes out, because I realized watching for the first time... I've seen this movie a few times in my life. Michael Beck doesn't dance a stitch in that movie. The dude that plays the main dude doesn't, for a movie that is all singing and dancing, it occurs to me that they bring Gene Kelly in to do all the heavy lifting of dancing with Olivia Newton John, and then nothing is expected of Beck. And the only time that it even gets close to giving him the opportunity to dance with her, it turns into an animated sequence.
Imagine someone being so marketable but so unable to dance that they animate his only dance sequence.
Well, okay, and I don't want to be rude to Michael Beck, but should I know Michael Beck from anything else?
He was marketable at the time. I don't know. I mean, the problem is that Xanadu is one of those movies where it defines you. I can't think of anything else that Michael Beck is in. But he was marketable at the time. I know, that's one of the reasons he's in that film.
Yeah.
And then that film happens, and it's like, yeah, we're not going to put you into anything else. But thanks for playing, Michael Beck.
Well, because so much of that movie just becomes letting Olivia Newton-John do a Vegas-style, music retrospective. So much of that movie is just let's go into a dark room, let's bring on theater pieces and a big band, and let Olivia Newton-John sing in front of them. Or the entire last 30 minutes is letting her go through I think 4 different genres of music, of doing different songs together with it's crazy how much of that movie is not a movie. There's not plot happening. There's nothing moving forward. And people say this kind of shit about musicals all the time, that they don't like that they don't like musicals. But we've always kind of talked about the idea that as long as there is a reason for a song to be sung, it is giving the audience new information that it didn't have, or reinforcing something, or clarifying. As long as there is an action statement to that song, it happens in a musical. That's the genre. That is what it is. That is so not what happens. So much of the music in Xanadu is so divorced from moving the plot in any direction that often things will happen, and it actually kind of confuses you and actually moves things backwards, because they then have to step in and clarify everything since then. There's this entire moment with Gene Kelly where he is in a very big ornate room. He starts dreaming about when he was young and was in the war, and he met a woman at a USO show or something, and falls in love with her. And then it reveals that woman at the time maybe was was Olivia Newton John's muse character just then, which makes sense because she's a muse, so she would exist through time. But like then she doesn't seem to remember him. But then later on she does, and she just reveals that like because of the way that things work, she didn't like she didn't catch on right away, or like there's so many moments where the movie lies to you basically about what's going on. It's fucking wild. Then add to all of that. They want to talk about this movie being the one where everybody's on roller skates, but half the people on roller skates in the movie look so uncomfortable the entire time. Michael Beck especially is just like he's got a couple of good spin moves, but there are moments when he's in a straight line and he's not sure of himself. It's a wild movie. And so for this to be like the movie on everybody's like on the tip of everybody's tongue when Olivia Newton-John passed away, I get it because so much
It's
of
her
the movie
movie.
is a celebration
Yeah.
of her. But I fear for the person that doesn't know what they're getting into watching that film and their opinions on what that's going to do to their opinions on film later.
I don't know. It is a huge retrospective for Olivia Newton-John. It's a movie that I did not rewatch it. My honoring of Olivia Newton-John was I got physical and
Nice.
watched the Get Physical video because it's fantastic. And I watched, for the Xanadu portion of it, Roger Smith's reenactment of Xanadu from American Dad.
Nice.
Because it's all of the inanity of Xanadu wrapped up in the fact that it's Roger playing
Right.
Olivia Newton-John. And that's one of the other things too, is the way that something like Xanadu, which is batshit banana pants clown shoes crazy,
Yes, and
is
that's putting
this
it lightly.
thing that just stuck with us and influenced pop culture going forward.
There is a moment where they speak to the god Zeus. First of all, and Michael Beck is a complete dick to him. Like he ends up in this room, so he skates headfirst into a wall. Wakes up in a black room with Olivia Newton-John in front of him, and then like colors start forming everywhere. And then we hear the voice of Zeus. And Michael Beck's first instance in that moment is to be like, "Hey, fucking guy, who are you? Who are you, guy?"
And then
Like,
Zeus flicks, and Michael Beck is naked, and he goes,
No,
I flick it
Zeus-
too hard. I flick it too hard.
Zeus then is just like, oh, you jolly humans. It's like this really weird, like almost it is almost Santa-esque the version of Zeus that is in this movie. And then Mrs. Claus shows up, and because they never name her, I don't know who she's supposed to specifically be, but I have to imagine Helena or somebody like that. But she's just like, oh, Zeus, we don't know what time is anyway. Why don't we give her a day on Earth, or maybe 100 years? Again, we don't know what time is. Like, they really want to remind you about that. And, like, it's just this really weird scene that has no respect for this, like, concept of what is, like, an actual muse and all of this bullshit that they've been trying to spout about, like, the lore, whatever. The lore is just so thin is what I'm getting at, that the movie itself can't even respect it. And then you get to the end of the movie, the credits roll, and they don't credit Zeus, even though they straight up, I think, call him Zeus. They just they credit it as godly voice and godly female voice are the two voices. And I was just like, why would you do that? And somebody that was watching it with me was like, because you don't want to piss off like all of the Christians, right? You don't want them thinking their kid is going to a movie with other gods and stuff in it. Like, it's all like, yeah, that's true, because this is around the time where people are like giving shit to like D&D and stuff like that. So the movie just like doesn't have the strength to stand by its own conviction of even being a movie about muses and like Greek mythology. It's so wild. Everything is just an excuse just to put a fancy costume on Olivia Newton-John and let her sing a song on roller skates. Like, that's everything in the movie is just an excuse to get to a new point to do that.
Yeah, that's... Congratulations. You understand Xanadu.
But then you got to think about the existence of Xanadu past Olivia Newton-John, beyond Olivia Newton-John, because it became such a phenomenon that it did become a stage show. It is still a show that gets revivals every so often. And there are other people out there that have done the songs from Xanadu covers. I mean, half of the Xanadu soundtrack is ELO. And so, like, that music still gets played places and stuff like that. So it has this really weird life beyond Olivia Newton-John, but clearly, like, every time it is going to be brought up, it is going to just be, like, a reference to, a celebration of, right?
Yeah.
It's such a wild experience. They don't make movies like this anymore.
Well, they do. They just don't get seen. They got to still be making movies like that somewhere. It's just that musicals are nowhere near as marketable as they were back then.
I mean, the closest I can think is maybe something like Burlesque being kind of a celebration of
Yeah,
Cher. But
there you
like,
go.
but even that is not great because Cher, I think, sings once in the whole movie, like famously, like saying like it doesn't really
Yeah,
do much.
Burlesque isn't a great example, but Burlesque got made. People just didn't go see it.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's weird. It's just a weird sort of Xanadu. Xanadu is also, these people who are like, oh, I gotta watch Grease. And I'm like, Grease is a weird movie to honor Olivia Newton John, especially when you consider that the Sandy character is so, like, mutated from what she was in the original Grease storyline
Well,
in
and
order
then
to fit Olivia Newton John into the role.
yeah, and then the end of the movie makes no sense. Like her turnabout at the end of the movie in the last second is like almost offensive. Like the ways in which she basically rejects anything and everything she said the entire movie to run off with Danny in the end in the leather jacket. It's wild. The ending of Grease as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's whatever. At least there's
Oh,
no
the ending
Grease
of
too.
Xanadu. Oh my God! I just remembered like the craziest thing about all of that. Right? Is so the story of Xanadu. For anybody who doesn't know, Michael Beck plays an artist who is not happy with his career. We'll leave it at that. Getting into what his actual career is in the movie would be a whole other episode. But he's not happy with what he's doing in his life, and he meets a young lady through his job. He comes across a young lady, and that lady turns out to be a muse for art, and she inspires him and inspires their mutual friend Gene Kelly, this older gentleman that Gene Kelly plays, to open an all accepting, like all creeds and colors nightclub disco, right? And that's the whole, and that's basically the whole concept of the movie, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, though, she reveals to Michael Beck's character, like, I'm a muse, I'm not a real woman, I need to go back to Olympia or wherever I come from. Helonica, I think is like the weird name that they give it. And so she has to leave. He then goes to find her there and says, like, I want you to come back. I want you to be mortal. And she wants to too. So Zeus, the god voice, says, I will give you so much time as a human. But again, remember, they keep talking about how they don't remember what time is, right? So she goes back with Michael Beck. They open the nightclub. She performs on opening night, and then she goes back to the sky. They don't even get like a night together. She doesn't spend any of the time at the nightclub with him because she's doing this one woman show on stage. So she gets granted the ability to come back to Earth as a human to basically perform 4 more songs and then gets brought back to heaven, I guess. So the ending of the movie is even crazier because this entire plot, you've been following Michael Beck, who has been this failing artist falling in love with his muse and then finally fighting for her to bring her back to Earth. And she says, I love you. And he says, I love you too. And they come back to Earth. And then the ending of the movie, she just disappears back to heaven again, making the entire point of him going in the first place moot.
Yeah, I think that's it. The futility of art feels like it might be the whole argument of it. Plus, it was the birth of the encore. Because she's done. She's like, thank you so much for coming out. We've been Kiss. And then she goes to heaven again, like Kiss does every night. And then they want her back so bad that they come out and they rock and roll all night. They do Beth, probably. And then that's enough. And then they go on.
See, it's fucking, that movie is just... It is a hell of a movie, so I definitely encourage
watch it. You know what? Honestly, watch Xanadu. I fell into. I need to watch all of the Scream movies before they leave Paramount Plus at the end of the month. So that's what I did. But Xanadu, I also wasn't really like you. You were weirdly moved by the death of Olivia Newton John, and I'm not trying to say anything like that. I'm still kind of numb to the fact that she's gone. It felt so weird for that to be like, so I'm sure I will do Xanadu in order to honor her passing. But like what I could muster and like be all right with was getting physical and then moving on from there.
Yeah, now, we grew up in a house where Grease was the musical Bible for a while. I didn't know other musicals existed besides Grease when I was like 5,
Can you blame them? Grease is the word.
So there's that element, that nostalgia to it for sure. That was a part of it. But yeah, you go into musical theater, you don't ever get away from Olivia Newton John,
Yeah. Well, and Xanadu's a big reason behind that. Yeah. Wonderful. So I guess I want to announce something here. It's coming. Eventually something is coming. I want to talk about it because I rewatched Detroit Rock City really enjoyed it, we're going to do a special episode on it.
Nice.
Be it a time capsule or a special episode. It'll be relevant to like the timeline of everything. So like for an anniversary. So I think it's a 99. So you're probably not going to get it until 2024 as a 25th anniversary little recording.
So this is like a way called shot. All right.
Dude, I love calling the shots. And here's the thing, even if the Say Report goes away, I'm still going to make Sejohn get together with me for an episode, and we'll drip feed it out to you. You know.
Well, considering some of the weird shit that's been going on around in Utah as far as the weather goes, we had a meteor strike yesterday.
Really? That's crazy.
House shaking, huge boom, didn't know what it was, found out later in the day that a meteor landed somewhere nearby, and that was what did it. The weather out here has been so crazy that I don't know if I'll still be here in 2024, but we'll see if I can talk about Detroit Rock City.
Well, it is better to have something to look forward to. Maybe not in Utah. Maybe you're somewhere else. A meteor strike happened, and I hear about it and 90 minutes into the fucking movie? What the fuck?
You gotta understand, man. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. So like I had just gotten up, was getting ready for work when it happened, and it sounded like a car had hit the house. Like somebody had run off the road and hit our house. So like I did a walk around the house, didn't see anything wrong, and like we looked all over the house, nothing had fallen over or anything like that. We just couldn't figure out what it was, and we just all day were kind of scratching our heads. And then finally at the end of the day, somebody had posted on Facebook some like security cam footage from like their Nest or some shit like that of the meteor strike. And what it was we had heard the sonic boom part of it when it came through, because it had like two parts. It was just wild. Yeah, but like that's like the full interaction of which I've had with this experience, and I have not come to terms with it yet, that I became apparently super close to getting hit by a goddamn meteor.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
I know.
Maybe they were coming back to get that little obelisk that they left 2 years ago. Jesus. God, so much. You know what else we didn't talk about? Is Donald Trump and the raid at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's brief, but
I don't want to revel in somebody's sorrow. There is some shit going down that is history making. I also don't want to talk too much about it until we know a little bit more about what's going on, which might not ever happen. So that's a whole other aspect. But yeah. Shit is pretty wild right now in terms of placing this episode in a historical moment. Things have gone a little haywire.
Yeah, there's a glitch in the Matrix, if Sejohn's whole belief that we're in a simulation is to be believed. No, you think the robots are in control, which is sort of the Matrix. There's just too much dystopian fiction, and none of it's lying up. We're what?
We're pre-Matrix. We can eventually get to where this timeline could definitely eventually lead to a Matrix X situation. I won't deny that, but I don't think we're in it currently.
If this timeline could eventually lead to a Matrix X situation, wouldn't it be easier to believe that we're already within the simulation and these are just the memories that they're feeding us?
Man, I'm so glad it's the end of the episode and we can't discuss this any further, so that my anxiety just stays in its nice little box today.
Dude, they're trying to break us out, Siege, and that's what that meteor strike was. That was the Nebuchadnezzar. No, that's not really what we're going to explore or anything like that. I'm just having fun with Siege because he reveals a meteor almost struck him, and I'm so scared and nervous for him.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
Dude, jeez. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it seems like a pretty obvious place to end the episode. I can't think of anything big or bad to add. Is there anything that you want to make sure that we say before we send this one off?
No, check out the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. We had that episode that dropped last week, and very proud of it.
Yeah, it is a good time.
it's been going strong now for a while, so there's a lot there to listen to. But yeah, particularly happy with last week's.
Yeah, especially because we thought it wasn't going to happen, but we did it. We messed with the Sejohn. I need to know one thing from you so that I can title this episode the title I want to give this episode, right? You remember the Boxcar children?
Yes, I had an entire Boxcar set of them that looked like a Boxcar and everything.
Can you name the four Boxcar children?
Oh, God, no. Tommy.
No.
Jimmy.
No. Close on both of them, though.
Tommy, Jimmy, trying to think of the other Goodfellas.
I've actually never seen Goodfellas. Another reveal. Okay,
Fredo.
So Henry and Benny were the boys, and then there's an older sister, and then there's Violet. so I can't remember the fourth Boxcar child name.
Oh man,
It's
Gertie.
Gertie. Yes, Henry, Gertie, Violet, and Benny.
No, Jesse.
Jesse. That makes sense. Actually,
Gertie. It was written by Gertrude. I can't think of her name. Gertrude Warner, I think.
Yeah, something like they were the Warner. Yeah. Well, but the reason we're doing that is just so the title of the episode makes sense now because we talked about the Boxcar children. Who's your favorite Boxcar child?
Oh, I mean, that's a weird question, Dev. It depends on the story. Probably Benny, I guess.
I think Benny's the most accessible. And Benny and Violet are the young ones, right? So they're like having fun. And you also need to remember the fact that the story behind the Boxcar children is that they were orphaned and made to live in a boxcar briefly until their grandfather found them, adopted them, brought them to a palatial estate where he moved the boxcar on as like a reminder that like if you kids step out of line, you'll go back to that fucking boxcar.
No.
Imagine if that were why. No, it was so that they could have it as a playhouse.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think Benny was probably the most fun to follow around, right? Like, whereas like Henry was kind of the oldest, like, and had to like take care of everybody, and I mean, it's that classic like I had to assume the role of dad in this maid family, and so it broke me in ways I cannot imagine. It's like, yeah, that's fun for kids.
Which is really fun when you have the episode where Henry's like freaking out about like, I like this girl and I don't know what to do, and they're like, Henry, no, we have to deal with all the scrimshaw that's being stolen from the whaling museum.
I forgot that there was like a PBS show of that. Man,
Boxcar Children, definitely a deep dive that we can go on later. The one thing that I will also say that I remember about it is that Henry is 14, Jesse is 12, Violet is 10, and Benny is 8.
Oh man.
So, that's that stuff. But now we talked about the Boxcar Children. If you're a listener, maybe you understand the title. You probably don't. You probably didn't get this far. If you did get this far, you're like flipping me off like, how dare you criticize the Scream movies and then this is the reveal? But yeah. Okay, so if you would like to... I had a thing that I wanted to ask people to send to you, and I've forgotten it.
Well, if you have your favorite story of the Boxcar Children that you want Devon to remember and reminisce with you, you can find him at Devon D. Decker.
And you know what? If you have Olivia Newton John memories that you want to work through, if you're still going with the grieving process, Sejohn is also doing it. And there's no better way to grieve than as a couple. So get him on Twitter at Siege versus the World. That sounded wrong on a couple of levels. I apologize, Sejohn. All right. Now, if Will, send us to Xanadu. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.